everybody. Welcome to Real Horror. Um, I am your host, Trina. I never say that. I just felt like saying that tonight.
That's good.
Uh, Joined by my co-host tonight, Vinny. Welcome, Vinny.
Hey, I'm here for the horror that's real.
Thank you. This is the place to be for that then.
That's right. I
And
hear it's also live.
yes, Real Horror Live.
Yeah, no,
Um,
this has been awesome.
yeah,
What a
this
great season.
Yep, and I am so looking forward to getting into these last two episodes of this season.
Hmm.
Yeah, awesome. And Mr. Pulp Noir, nice to see you. Thanks for dropping by.
Hello, hello.
Um, yeah, all right. These episodes, oh my god, they packed a lot into these ones.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, amazing. Um, all right, I guess we'll just jump right in.
Sure.
All right, so Hannibal season 1, episode 12 starts with Will in the hospital. Well, yeah, he's checking on Georgia, the girl from the last episode.
Hmm.
She's in that oxygen chamber,
Yep.
and she's doing a lot better. She looks great, actually.
She looks human again.
Yeah, she looks human again. The skin's growing back on her arm.
Yeah, that
Her
grafting thing or whatever they did. Yeah,
Yep.
that looked pretty cool.
Yeah. That's another thing on the effects, that how they made her look like emaciated and
Hmm.
like all like basically made her look like a monster because she was so
Yeah.
sick. I forgot to mention how great the makeup effects were
Oh
on that.
yeah, that whole gaunt look with
Yeah.
almost like the skeletal kind of structure. Like she did look like she was death or not alive.
Yeah.
It's like that's
Yeah.
what she didn't see herself as being alive. Like there was a lot of great stuff they did in there.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. All these episodes have been fantastic. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, so now we're seeing her and she's looking great. She's really recovering well. And Will goes to check on her and he's like, "You're looking a lot better." And she says, "Do I look like I'm alive?"
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, they're talking about that.
Yeah.
And
And he says, "You look beautiful." Like
yeah,
he's been trying to build her confidence up a little bit because he knows what this poor kid went through.
yep, absolutely. Oh, hello, Tree Rock. Nice to see you.
Hey, Tree Rock.
Thanks for stopping by.
Sweet.
Yeah, so they're talking about that, and then she asks, how he's doing and if they've figured out what's wrong with him and everything, and he's like, they're still looking, and she says they're not going to find anything, because we saw in the previous episode how through her childhood they kept searching for what was wrong with her and could never find anything, kept giving her like bad diagnoses and bad medicine, and
Hmm.
she just had a terrible, like, it's how she ended up where she ended up,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
um just, yeah, bad malpractice, really, in the true sense of the word.
Yeah. It's I'm surprised they touched on a lot of these kind of things because a good number of cases had a lot of that stuff going on too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And Lurch Troll, hello, nice to see you.
Hey, Lurch. What's up, buddy?
um Yeah, and so yeah, she's like, they'll do all kinds of tests and all this, but they won't find what's wrong.
Hmm.
And then they talk about how she could make a full recovery, um, cognitively with electroconvulsive therapy, and
Hmm.
she's afraid to do that. She's like, well, I really don't want to remember. She's like, right now, like, it's about killing her friend.
Yeah.
And while she was in that state, it's really not her fault, because it's there was so many medical issues going on with her, and she wasn't
Yeah.
right. you
But
know
it's heartbreaking too how she says it too, because when he's like,
hmm
"Oh yeah, I hear that they'd be able to help you like that," and she goes,
yeah,
"I don't want to remember."
yeah,
Like she just flat out says it, and you can see like the horror on her face. Like
yeah,
she's very grateful to Will for helping her like that, and you can see like they're kind of forming a connection.
yeah,
Um, because he's a very caring individual, and that's kind of the whole reason why he's in this mess too, because of his empathy.
yeah.
But it's wild.
Yeah, and yeah, is so yeah, that was sad, and yeah, it's great because even though he has like this weird way of processing the world, he still connects with people. Um,
Hmm.
like yeah, he's just really he's awesome.
Yeah, he's got that that natural charm, the ones
Mm.
that the sociopaths have. Although he's not a sociopath. Like
Yeah, he like it's genuine with him.
yeah, it's very genuine. When those other ones, you could see how it's like a light switch. They could flip it on and off the second someone leaves the room. Oh, actually, that happens in this. I think it's this episode or the
Yep.
following one where something happens with Hannibal. He's putting on this big show, and as soon as the person leaves the room, his face drops, and he's just like robot mode.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like,
Yep.
wow, that really resonated with me because I know a couple of people like that. I was like,
Oof.
holy shit.
It's so creepy, and yeah, it just
Yeah.
shows how great the acting is in the show because it comes off as real, not you know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's just well done. And real quick, hello Solo Wood, and thank you for stopping by.
Hey, good to see you.
And yeah, so they're talking about like, she says it feels like a dream
Hmm.
where she killed a friend, and she doesn't really want to remember it as it really happened.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and then he asks like, "Well, do you ever dream about killing anybody else?" And she says that well, she has dreamed of Will killing that doctor
Uh huh.
that she's referring to Sutcliffe, but
Yep.
she can't see
His
Will's
face.
face.
Yeah.
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 And
That's. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the most gruesome deaths I've seen. I think on the series.
Yep. Yeah, and what I like how they filmed this because right as she says that, it kind of like fades to we see like Hannibal
Hmm.
for a second. So it's like they're very clever with the clues that they give you.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's yeah, I love how this is filmed. But
Yeah. And
then
how it unravels too. These
oh
last
yeah.
two episodes. Holy shit.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the way that
Hmm.
yeah, we're gonna get into that
Oh
'cause
yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah, but then next we see Will is in bed, and Hannibal comes and brings him, basically he makes him like, well, he describes what he makes, and it's like this elaborate thing, and Will goes, "So you brought me chicken soup," and they kind of chuckle at that, and so they're at the table, they're eating together,
Yeah,
and
there's like a lot of good banter that they have like
mm,
that, and yeah, that scene was really good. I enjoyed that one.
yeah, yeah, definitely, and it also mirrors the very first episode when they had their first meal together. In that
Oh
right in
yeah,
that
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, when he brings in that food, because he tries to
yeah,
make peace with him. That's when he did that.
yep,
Um, yeah, which was great. But yeah, I do like that. It's almost like he still has this thing where he cares about Will so much that he's willing to nurse him back to health, kind of with his own home cooked meals.
yeah, yeah. Ugh. And we know the truth about him, so it's like so slimy.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh, he's just such a manipulative son of a bitch. Especially what happened on that last episode, where it's
oh,
like
dude.
you and I just want to reach through the television and strangle him.
Yep. Yeah, so they talk about how he has, visited Georgia and the girl Georgia in the oxygen tank, and Will says she's basically like his support group because they connect on that level, and
Yeah.
Hannibal says he's like kind of being encouraging. He's like, there's nothing more isolating than mental illness. And then they start talking about all the symptoms that Will's been having, and Will asks, were all of these symptoms because of my fever? And Hannibal he just kind of floats the idea. Well, he just basically says like that it's dementia. And Will asks, well, does Jack know what's going on with me? And Hannibal's like, no, and we need to keep it a secret until we know for sure what's going on with you, which is so slimy because he knows what's going on.
Oh
And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
that's why I said. Yeah, these episodes are wild. How they're doing this.
yeah,
How they break it down.
yep. And yeah, and just basically he says, we need to support your recovery and everything. And then they talk more about Georgia, and Will says, I don't think she wants to recover because she's afraid of remembering what she did. And then Hannibal says, can't say I blame her. And then it cuts to Georgia. It shows Georgia in the oxygen chamber thing, and she notices a comb in the chamber, and then there's a mirror in there, so she starts like combing her hair. And when you use a comb on your hair, it gets staticky. So
Yeah, that it broke my heart as soon as I saw it. Even the
yep,
first time around, when I saw the
yep,
comb in there like that, I'm like, oh shit,
yep, that
because
static, it like
it was
um
gruesome.
it ignites like the oxygen, and she
Yeah,
cooks
it sparked.
inside the chamber.
Yeah, it sparked. It created that fire, and
Yeah,
she didn't even have time to take the damn comb out of her hair. It was still stuck in there as everything was going, and she couldn't get out. She's
yeah.
locked in there.
Yeah, it was a perfect environment for a fire with the concentrated oxygen and everything. It was just, yeah, she just burns alive. It's so sad. Um
Yeah,
and
considering what she went through, and then that's how she
yeah,
meets her end like that as she's getting back to normal. Like, yeah,
I know, because we had that little like piece of hope that they gave us with her getting better and everything, and all of a sudden, poof, and it
yeah.
was like, oh
Yeah.
man.
Well, that's the thing too, because what she said, she witnessed him
Hmm.
murder. So if she gets her memory back, like I saw, that's a loose end that yeah, Hannibal had to definitely nip in the bud. Which
Yep.
again shows you how much of a monster the character is.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So then we see Jack and the gang. They're all investigating the chamber, and Jack is basically he's on the theory that it was. Well, he says they think it was a short circuit, and then Zeller says, "Oh, she didn't have her grounding bracelet on, um, so that's why that spark happened, or that it would have grounded the electricity, and they wouldn't have ignited." And so now Jack is thinking that it was suicide, and Will is like, no, no, she wasn't suicidal. And he's like explaining how when he talked to her and everything, and now Jack is mad because he visited her, and he's like, that can mess up the case against her and whatnot. And he's like, well, it doesn't really matter now, does it?
Yeah, and that was really interesting too. Yeah, because like uh had she not died, like that's still that's a big mistake that Will went to go see her like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because yeah, you're gonna, I mean, you're gonna mess up the entire case
Yep.
if there's something that happens, or he gravitates towards, or she gravitates towards him with giving him
Mm,
false information, and
mm.
because he keeps building these bonds with these with the survivors, so
Yes.
that becomes very problematic.
Like
But
we see with Abigail.
oh yeah, that's in a massive way.
Yeah. So yeah, so Jack is none too happy about that. And then next we see Freddie Lowndes and Abigail talking. They're discussing ideas for Abigail's book, and they're Abigail's like, "What are you gonna title it?" And her Freddie's initial idea was The Last Victim, but interestingly, that book has already been written by a serial killer, and right after he wrote it, he offed himself.
Yeah,
And
and
Abby,
it was a bestseller.
yeah, yeah, it was. Of course, it was. And Abigail says, "Well, it's just as well because I really wasn't my dad's last victim. Marissa was." And Freddie's like, "You." She says, Do you blame him for, um, do you blame your dad for Nicholas Boyle's death?" And Abigail says, well, I blame Nicholas for his own death. You know, he killed Marissa and got what was coming to him. And Freddy's like, no, he didn't kill your friend. And Abigail's like, well, then who did? And Freddy's like, well, I think the better question is who killed Nick. And then we see Abigail has a flashback of when, um, Nick was kind of like not, he was like it looked like he was going after her in her house and she stabbed him.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's that scene is really that's something else too. For again, for
yep.
that Lowndes character, who's such a shit stain of a
Yeah.
character. She's very astute and alert to dealing with these people,
Yep.
and you could see she just smells the bullshit all over Abigail.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta give her credit for that. She's a shit, like, yeah, like you said, she is a shit stain. Like she is that like National Enquirer type person, and it's just an absolute menace. But she can sniff out the bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's partly because she's also like a sociopath or on that
Mm,
level. It's
yes.
like that's how a lot of them like they operate. Like they're good at using other people, but they could kind of see their own kind as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting how they're doing it. But again, the psychology behind the whole writing of this and these characters is so tight. It's so like they're on the money with it. What's up,
Hmm.
Lion Ratton?
Hey, Lane Ratton, good to see you.
Good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you could see how Freddie also kind of steers her away because
Mhm.
she could see it, she could tell, and then she kind of redirects it towards Will again. Like, oh,
Yes.
he's a serial killer, like that, like because
Yeah.
she's convinced that Will is a murderer.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, yeah, because she mentions, she's like, she says, Nick was just a dumb kid who was messed up because his sister was murdered. He wasn't a killer. And she's like, I've interviewed enough killers to know when I see one. And she's looking right at Abigail as she says it. And Abigail is looking at her and is like, she's like, what gives them away? And Freddie says it's a specific brand of hostility, and that she sees that in Will. And
Yeah, it's that control. They try to control the conversation as well.
yeah,
And it's funny because as she says it, then you see Abigail's demeanor kind of change. She pulls the chair and then sits down
yep,
from being like scared little girl to kind of like okay now she's giving these direct questions to Freddie.
yep,
You know, it's like and you could just see Freddie's eyes. Just she's a damn good actress. That the one who's playing Freddie as well.
yeah.
Because the way that she's just she sees through her. You know, like that's not easy to capture. You know, on camera like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, like the acting is fantastic. It
Mm-hmm.
really is. Like uh, all of these all of these actors did a phenomenal job.
Oh, they absolutely did, because they're also super convincing
Yep.
on that aspect. And again, a lot of them are not big names. The biggest name is Lawrence Fishburne and Mads Mikkelsen. The
Yeah.
rest of the cast, it's people that you might recognize here or there, but nothing really substantial.
Yeah.
And they're doing an incredible job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so when Freddie says that, Abigail says, "You don't really think he killed my dad?" And she's like, "Well, he and Jack Crawford told everyone that Nick was the copycat, and then someone murdered him for it." And Abigail's like, "Yeah," that's when she says, "You don't think Will killed my dad?" And Freddie's like, "Well, whoever killed Nicholas Boyle killed an innocent man." And then we have a cool scene. We see Will is in bed and he sees Georgia, how she used to look in his house, and the way she's moving, it's kind of like stop motion.
Yeah, it's a trippy scene. I like
Yeah.
how they did this, but
Yep.
it's also that big reveal to it. She's point like she knew it. She saw the killer, and I think that's what's really good too. Is you kind of see in the subconscious as he's
Yep.
sleeping that he's figuring it out. Like she gave him pieces to the puzzle that are missing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
He's getting it.
Yep. Yep, because
But yeah,
he
that
follows her outside, and she goes, see, and then all of a sudden, um, and also CC is what Garrett Jacob Hobbs said as he was dying when Will shot him. So
yeah, yeah.
so
It's like
that
not. Yeah, it's more like now. Do you see?
yes,
Now do you see?
yep. And then right after she says that, she gets impaled by the stag antlers. And that was a wild scene.
Oh
Um,
yeah, she went completely on fire, and then
yes,
like she disappears. She just she turns to ash or whatever, and
yep,
then you see that thing. The stag. Is that
yep.
when it starts to form, or is that later?
That's later.
Okay,
That's in
okay.
the next episode.
It was powerful though how they did that.
Yeah,
It looked damn good.
creepy.
Yeah, super creepy, but yeah,
Yeah,
awesome though.
amazing. And then we see Will wake up, and um, so yeah, we know. Obviously, we know that was a nightmare. I mean, that was obvious. And then he's at Jack's office, and Jack's like, "Why are you in my office?" He's like, "You should be in the hospital." And Will's like, "My fever broke. I'm feeling fine." And he's there to talk about George. Oh, who was it? Um,
What? Wait, say that again.
he's there. So Will is at Jack's office, and he's like, um, Will says, Wait, I'm lost in my notes here." Oh yeah, but okay, yeah. So he's talking about Georgia, and he goes, this wasn't, this wasn't an like suicide. She was murdered, and so Jack and they're going back and forth, and Will says, whoever murdered Sutcliffe murdered Georgia, and Jack argues some more with him, and Will really steps up, and he's like, all her life she's been misunderstood. At least I can do is make sure she's not misunderstood in her death. And then he says, he reiterates, she didn't kill herself. This was not an accident. And I really feel like he got his point across to Jack at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So then we're at the Okay, so now we're at the lab, and Price reveals that they found a piece of plastic in the chamber, and Will figures out somehow that it was a comb, and he's like, "You're holding the murder weapon," and then Jack says, "Or whatever she used to kill herself," and this really irritates Will,
Uh huh.
so he turns around and he opens one of those cold storage doors where they keep the cadavers,
Yeah.
and they're all going, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!"
Yeah, because he's just yanking it. He don't give a shit. He just
Yeah,
walks over. He's like, "Oh yeah, well yeah, let's go back to the last victim," and he pulls the doctor out.
yeah. He pulls Sutcliffe. He pulls out Sutcliffe, and he's just, oh man, what a scene! And he goes, the same. Yeah, he goes, whoever killed Sutcliffe wanted to kill him the same way that Georgia Madchen did, but not exactly.
Yeah, he wanted to make it appear that way.
Yes.
And
And Zeller
and
says,
yeah, and yeah, fucking Lawrence Fishburne. He's like, what do you mean? Like another copycat? Like,
yep,
it's like now you're stretching it, kind of thing. Like you can see, yeah, Jack's getting upset. He's getting very upset with Will.
yeah, yeah. And and okay, yeah, then Zeller says that yeah, he's like, yeah, that's true. Georgia was, the face, she carved her victim's face, but Sutcliffe was nearly decapitated. And then Jack is like, oh, okay, so she went further the second time. That's kind of, serial killers often do that. And he's like starting to say more, and Will interrupts and says, no, she was copied, like whoever killed Marissa Shure and Cassie Boyle
Mm-hmm.
wanted to copy how Garrett Jacob Hobbs killed his victims,
Mm-hmm.
but not exactly how.
Yeah.
And Jack is like, are you saying that Sutcliffe was killed by Hobbs' copycat, and Will starts to have like anxiety. He's starting to get some realizations, and he goes, so was Georgia Madchen
Mm-hmm.
killed by a copycat, and he's really starting to put pieces together in these in this episode, and then the next one
Yeah.
especially.
And Jack, he's going like, all right, Will's going too far with this. He goes now. It really feels like it's something delusional that he's trying to link all these cases.
Yep.
Like he's feeling it so far fetched, and yeah, he's starting to think that Will is having like his mental breakdowns.
Yep. Yep. And Jack is like, well, Will, you said that Nicholas Boyle was a copycat, and and all this stuff. And he says there was blood on one of the victims, and Nicholas Boyle is dead. And Will says, well, then he's not the copycat. And then he kind of like he walks away, like he's on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
So next we see Jack having a conversation with Hannibal, and he's concerned about Will, and he's asking like, could this be more than just a fever with Will? And he's like, he's starting to connect to murders that previously had no connections, and you know and he asks what he asks what Hannibal, and he asks Hannibal what Will's relationship is with Abigail, and yeah, Hannibal's like, Will he's like, well, I don't think Will would keep anything criminal from you. And then Jack is like, I'm really starting to wonder a lot about Will.
Mm-hmm.
And Hannibal's like, he needs our support, whether or not mental illness is involved. Like the little seeds he plants when he says things.
Yeah, everything is manipulation.
Yep. And Jack says, is it really mental illness, or does his mind just work so differently from ours that, we don't know what else to call it? And then Hannibal, shuts that down and says, there are days when Will doesn't even understand his own thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just what an ass.
Yeah. That writing is really good.
Yeah.
You could also see, too, during these episodes, Jack he's getting another. It's not just Will he's questioning. You could see that he's figuring out shit or questioning Hannibal during this stuff too. Because you could tell like he's not stupid. He doesn't like a lot of the responses that Hannibal gives him. Like certain ones seem to be like logical or make sense, and then other ones he's just like, this is too much. And his breaking point was, I think, when they had to go there for Tobias. That why would he come to that office and he wanted to just kill Franklin? Or like you could tell from that point he's not sold. He's not sold on Hannibal anymore. He's starting to question him.
Yeah, Lurch, fantastic writing in this show, really is.
Oh, it goes deep with all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jack pays a visit to Hannibal's psychiatrist, Dr. Du Maurier. That's Gillian Anderson's character, and he's there to ask, about, he has some questions about Hannibal, and he wants to know he basically thinks that Hannibal is keeping pertinent info on Will, like a secret, like he should be telling Jack, but he's not. And she's like, well, if there's not a court order and there's not consent, then I'll be violating confidentiality. And he's like, that's true. And then he says, well, how about the patient who attacked you then? And he's like, yeah, I read the report. And so we find out that this patient who attacked her was actually referred to her by Hannibal. And she says that patient swallowed his own tongue while attacking her, and that's how she survived.
Yes, it's very telling too, because then at that moment too, Jack does question, and he says, yeah, like, did you hear about how Hannibal, he was attacked in his office? So he goes, now that's two.
Yep.
That's yeah.
Yep.
He's getting there.
Yeah. And yeah, she says, oh, that's that's not bad psychology, putting me in a position where I have to defend or not defend Dr. Lecter. And Jack goes, you know, you have to admit there's some pretty he has some pretty complicated relationships with his patients. And she said, well, complicated patients, you know, are conducive to complicated relationships. And then he asks, you know, how far do you think Lecter would go in his treatment of Will? And she says, well, you know, Hannibal considers Will more of a friend than a patient. And since he doesn't have many friends, he's going to tend to be very loyal.
Or so he says.
Yes,
Because that's the
exactly.
thing. Because we from what we've already seen, like, you don't do that to friends. You
Yep,
know, he's toying with him. He wants to see how far Will's mind will go before he breaks.
yep.
You know,
And
and that's
she's also being untruthful and manipulative too, because she
oh yeah,
knows that Hannibal can't form friendships.
yeah. It's this game of chess that
Yeah,
that Jack and her are playing right now as well. But
yep,
he doesn't know the full extent of it either. He knows that they're both brilliant doctors, but at the same time, there's something that's bothering him a lot about it. That's why he goes, you know, kind of behind Hannibal's back
yeah.
to
He
get these answers from her.
Yep. He doesn't seem to have much respect for psychiatrists. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, as it's gone, yeah, as these episodes have gone on, I think in the beginning it seemed like he did
Hmm.
he did care more, but then it's the certain ones too because the other connection that they have. So like Alana, he got disrespectful to her
Mm-hmm.
because he sees that she cares for Will, but it looks like more than, you know, just a patient thing. And then
Hmm.
at the same time, he wants his answers. He wants, you know, again, like what he did to Abigail, because he believes Abigail was involved
Yep.
in the father, you know, in that whole murder situation. And you know, we saw it a little bit in the other episode. She confides to Hannibal that she was the bait,
Yeah.
so she did help the father, and not only that, she helped him with like sewing up the girls and stuff too. It wasn't just that she was the bait.
Yep.
So yeah, again, it's really really good how they did all this. You
Yeah.
know.
Very much. So yeah. And then yeah, because he kind of looks at her with contempt when she says, he goes, I consider Will Grimm a friend as well, and I want to help him. And she says, it seems to me that Will Grimm would do well with more friends like Dr. Lecter. And he kind of like just looks at her like, I think he feels like there's something off with her.
Yeah, I get a little bit of that vibe too,
Yeah.
and at the same time, it's like you could see more. He's not pressing it because there is certain information he's looking for, but
Hmm.
he's definitely it's opening up his eyes
Yeah.
in a big way.
Yeah. He's actually he's smart. He knows
Hmm.
to an extent who he can trust and not.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, he can see that there's something up with Lecter and her, and yeah, he can sense it. So now we are back at the lab, and it's Jack talking to Zeller and Price, and this was kind of funny. This scene, Will is theorizing that Hobbs and the copycat killer are connected, and maybe even that they may have even killed together. And Price and Zeller said, bantering about, well, that sounds more like a hypothesis than a theory, because with theory you need evidence. And so, and they start geeking out, and it's just
Yeah.
funny how that goes. And Jack says, let's play Jeopardy. The answer is that these people were killed by the copycat,
Hmm.
who's connected to Garrett Jacob Hobbs. Now you tell me how. And they start geeking, and they're like, yeah, I wanted to get back into investigating and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
Jack goes, oh, where is Beverly?
Yeah.
And they go, she's at jury duty. And he's like, get her out of jury duty. And he wants them to start like cross-referencing things. Like he wants to put connections together, like where Hobbs went, who he's was with, and phone
Yeah. Because
calls.
it's in case
Mm.
Will is right, because there's still
Yes.
a piece of Jack that's like trust some of what he says over some of the shit that I've seen recently with Hannibal. You can see the gears going in his head. Like
Yeah.
they're not giving it to us directly, but that's
Yeah.
what I liked about this, because the show doesn't dumb down for the audience.
Yeah, and it's
They
like you
yeah
got
they
to respect Jack because even if he thinks that there's something like up with Will, like his mind isn't working fully, he will still give weight to a theory that could be plausible.
exactly. You know,
So,
and the other part of it is, yeah, like what I was saying before too, they trust the actors to deliver it in this certain way where it is very believable, where we are like you and I sitting here watching it again. It's like,
mhm.
okay, we could see that Jack is figuring this out, you
Yeah,
know, and where he could put trust into, like you said, like Will, even messed up, he's still very very good at
yeah,
of coming up with these theories that could be plausible, could work. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
yeah. I love it. I love how there's so much in this show. Like the show does a good job of show not tell. You like you can see people's gears turning, and there's a lot of unspoken dialogue in this show. It's
Oh, for sure,
yeah,
for
like
sure. And then when they do actually show those, it's very impactful.
yes.
Those gruesome things and some of the murders and the shit behind it, or how Hannibal, like again, they give you that little bit of like when he's about to kill someone, like in those other episodes, because the first time we actually physically see him kill without being attacked in his office or whatever was that doctor when he carved the face like that,
Hmm.
so it makes it more impactful, and we didn't see that his hands getting 100% dirty in our face until that point,
That's right.
you know.
Yep.
So yeah, it's really good. Like it's so balanced, and the storytelling is so on par with what you would expect out of a proper thriller.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's wild that this was this NBC?
Yeah, NBC.
Yeah, I can't even believe this was NBC. It
Mhm.
feels like it would be like HBO, uh, or Max as it's called now, or
Oh yeah.
Showtime, or something like that. It,
Hmm.
it's so yeah, like quality is right up there.
I know. See, I'm questioning too if had it did land on HBO or something like that, would we have gotten even more seasons? Because network
Yeah,
television, I mean, this thing was pushing the line in every regard, and I know there was a lot of blowback too with some of the gruesome kills and everything.
yeah, yeah,
But they kept saying though it's like after 9 was like nine
yeah.
thirty or something, they could get a little more extreme, you know.
That was the rule.
Yeah, because NYPD Blue, they're the first ones who did it.
Yep,
They go in the first half hour is when they had more of the normal stuff, and when they get to the last half hour, that's when they show a little bit of nudity or they start dropping some curse words.
yep. And
You
then
know.
after 10, it was like
Hmm.
ramped up.
Oh yeah,
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 yeah. I remember those days. Boy,
yeah.
that feels like forever ago.
Right. It's wild. And now like no one even has regular cable or network anymore. It's
I
just
know.
it's wild. It's
I,
crazy to see how they destroyed so much of everything.
yeah.
But
Want to say a quick hello to
oh yeah,
Manliness and Motivation.
what's up, man?
And it would not be a stream without someone mentioning elephants. So thank you for that manliness. He beat you to it this time Prophet.
Right.
And yeah, good to see you guys.
Yeah, great seeing you guys. Oh shit.
And next scene we see Will and Abigail talking, and they're basically talking about like how it felt when they killed, and she's like, it felt good when I killed Nicholas, and he's like, it felt good to you, and she's like, well, did it feel terrible to you when you killed my dad? And he's like, well, I was terrified, and then I felt powerful, and she says, yeah, it felt good. It felt good to end it and to stop it all, and she says, I, I thought I got away from my dad. And he says, I don't think either of us have gotten away from your father. and she's like, I wish I had killed him for all the things he did and he made me be a part of and everything. And she's like, I feel like he's still out there. And Will says, well, in a way he is. And she says, you mean the copycat? And he says, I think I can catch him, but I'll need your help to do it. And she nods. She's like, yeah, I'll help you.
That scene was really interesting too, because later, or coming up now, when they talk about how Will's having these delusions and he's like really thinking or starting to believe that he's Hobbs. Like
Yeah.
they start to come up with this theory, and then like watching that scene, it's like you could clearly see that that's also possible.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like we know what's going on a lot of key things, but then like when they drop certain things or those moments that happen, it's like this is kind of plausible too if he is starting to lose it.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, no, it was great, and yeah. Do you think, as like when you were watching it, when he says that he felt powerful taking out Hobbs, do you think it's something that he was saying just to get a little bit more on her side, or do you think he really did feel that?
I think he was being real. I don't think Will knows how to bullshit.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know there was a couple of episodes where he kind of played a little bit in order to get a reaction from someone. I can't remember the specific episode of the moment.
Yeah, you'll
But
have to remind me.
yeah, because I know he's capable of doing that, but he doesn't. He's not full on. I know he's had some of those games with Freddie Lounds,
Oh
on the
yeah.
earlier
Yeah, I see
episodes.
what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, like you said, yeah, in this moment, I guess it did feel a little bit more real.
Yeah. I
With
think
how
he
he
was
said
being genuine.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he feels, yeah, because he forms connection. He has definitely formed a connection with Abigail. Like he has felt like, a surrogate dad to her. He formed that connection with Georgia because they kind of have that shared, medical stuff and feeling
yeah.
like an outcast and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he forms genuine bonds with
Bonds.
certain people, and
Yeah.
I think when he does that, he won't bullshit.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. But
And
yeah, these are still, yeah. This is excellent stuff. What's going on? What's about to happen?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, so Time Prophet has a dad joke. He
Mhm.
says, what is the difference between an African elephant and an Indian elephant? About 3,000 miles. Oh man, yep, that was a groaner.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next thing we see is Hannibal's having his session with um Dr. Du Maurier,
Mhm.
and I wish he had a better name, but yeah.
Yeah, it needed something more memorable.
Yeah.
But I can't.
Um,
I again, I didn't read the book, so I don't know if that was her. If there was a character like that in them.
that's a good point. I
Yeah,
didn't even think of that.
that I'm not sure about, because I
Yeah.
know that they said like when there was that younger Hannibal thing where they kind of like a prequel story to his life.
Mhm.
Like I know like the novel people seem to enjoy it, and
Mm.
then like the movie not as much. They said
Yeah, that's
it wasn't
yeah.
horrible, but it was not so great. I didn't see it. That's the only one I have not seen.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's pretty common for if you've read the book, you won't like the TV or movie
right.
adaptation.
Yeah.
It's just you just can't
Hmm.
it just doesn't translate perfectly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's having his session with Gillian Anderson and and yeah, she's telling him about, how Jack came to visit and was asking, questions about Hannibal and, that he is possibly protecting Will Graham. And she's like, I'm going to step out of my therapist role and into the role of a colleague. And she's like, you need to stop whatever you're doing with Will Graham. You've crossed a professional line. And he says, what, by making a friend? And she says, you can't function as a friend when you're not even familiar with the concept of being a friend. And he says, I'm protecting Will from influence. It's like, can you make me laugh harder? And he goes, I'm trying to make
Oh
Will
yeah.
understand who he is because he has flawed belief about himself.
Yeah, that whole conversation,
Yeah.
those are the moments where you just want to punch him in the face
Yes. Yeah.
because it's
I'm
like,
trying to.
yeah, it's like how is he even saying this with a straight face? Because
I know.
we know what he did to Will.
I'm trying to protect him from influence as he's basically using him as a puppet.
Yeah,
Like, oh
'cause
my
he's like,
god.
I don't like Jack Crawford. Yeah, using him. I'm the one who uses him.
Yeah, basically, I think, yeah, you're right. The influence he's talking about is Jack or
Yeah,
Alana.
both. Yeah, I
Yeah.
say both. But it's
And
funny because Alana's actually trying. She's the only one who's trying to make sure Will's going to stay safe and get better, and the other two are pulling him in either direction.
I know. I know. It's
Bastards.
yeah.
But to Jack's credit, he's starting to see and he is feeling responsible again
Mhm.
for so the kind of the breakdown that Will's having. But I
Yeah.
think as he's realizing he's a little too late on some of the what's going on.
Yep. Yeah. And so she says that thing about how he can't be a friend when he doesn't even know, what that even is, and all that. And then he's like, yeah, she says, well, you may not be able to protect, you may not be able to change how he thinks about himself. And um Hannibal's like, well, I'm not comfortable telling Will I can't help him. And she's like, well, tell him something else then. And she mentions that Jack also asked about her attack, and this was a big reveal right here. He goes, what, he kind of that catches his attention, and he goes, what did you tell him? And
All the
she's
details she left out. Yeah.
yeah, she's like half truths.
Hmm.
And she says that she told that a violent patient swallowed his tongue while attacking me, but I didn't tell him how or why or who was responsible. And it's like, okay, now we know for sure that
Yeah,
it.
she's protecting him. She's
Yep.
something else is going on between the two of them, and
Yep.
you see like the smile on his face too, like good girl, like I trained you right.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You
Yep.
get that vibe,
Yep.
because
Yeah. He gets kind of.
he's not rattled or anything.
Yep. He feels like a little relieved by her answer,
Yeah,
and he goes, "Oh, so you can protect your patient from Jack Crawford, but I can't protect mine." And she says, "Well, no, not anymore." She's like, even the best psychiatrists have limitations. That might be hard for you to hear. And he's like, "Yeah, it is." And it's like so like narcissistic. And she goes, "You have to maintain professional boundaries." And Hannibal is like, when I can no longer maintain my personal and professional boundaries, I'll find a way to relieve them. And oh boy, do we know what that means.
oh yeah, yeah. I'd say once their usefulness is worn off,
Mm-hmm.
so is their need to live in his eyes.
Yep. Once someone becomes a problem, we know what happens.
Yeah, because like they have to serve his purposes, and if they don't, then he takes them out.
Yep.
It's wild. But again, you see how he reels it back into, the control.
Mm-hmm.
Every conversation, every moment, he has to be in control of it.
Yep. Yep.
There's
And he's
times.
good at it.
Oh yeah, because there's times he makes them feel like they're in control or what they're saying matters or whatever,
Yeah.
and we know again as the audience who watched, especially in those moments he had earlier on with Jack. You get that vibe where he kind of he steered him in that direction where Jack feels vindicated on his approach to things, and and Hannibal sitting there smiling like, "Yep, I caused you to think like that or take that path."
Yep.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, it's funny too because in that scene we learned a lot about what happened, including that her attack and that
Mm-hmm.
Hannibal saved her and was responsible for this guy meeting his end. But at the same time, it feels like whatever power she had over him kind of disappears or gets thrown back into Hannibal's position again. At least that's the sense that I got.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
a lot of their conversations, it feels like she was steering the conversation, or that she had because she was seeing through his bullshit and just calling him out. But now it feels like the manipulation game is bigger than that, and
Yep.
it's definitely leaning in his favor.
Yep. Like he maintains control. Like, who, if someone else is in control, it's because he has allowed it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like even when
Yeah.
he's not in control, he's in control.
Oh yeah.
And manliness and motivation is Jack's last name, Meow.
No,
Can you not?
it's Crawford. Damn it, man.
And okay,
We're
so
the only
now
ones trying to be fucking professionals here. You
I
guys are
love
acting
it.
like pistachio ice cream.
So now we see Will is seeing Hannibal, and he's talking about how he's feeling better and he's thinking more clearly and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and they start talking about like Will's his theory about the copycat and all that stuff, and Will is challenging his assessment because he can see that Will is onto something. And Will says that Georgia followed him to the doctor's office and saw the copycat, and Hannibal, like Hannibal's getting a little like shaken in this scene. He goes, "Whoa, why
Mm-hmm.
not kill her then and there then?"
Yeah,
And
you could see he's physically shitting his pants. It's one of the first times we're seeing the cracks on this guy's face.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because Will, once he locks in like that, he doesn't let go, and he is right.
yep,
So that's what Hannibal's seeing, and then like what he does to flip the script is incredible. Jesus.
yeah, yeah. When he's thinking clearly, he doesn't like he gets his theory and he sticks with it because his instincts have been right. Um, and Time Prophet says if he's so good at what he does, no, he says he is so good at what he does. So do you think he got imprisoned on purpose for a holiday? And holiday over in Britain is vacation over here. Um,
Yeah. From again, this series is kind of based off of Red Dragon.
mhm,
Like there's a lot of similar characters and stuff in certain situations,
mhm.
but because in see now this I want to read the book. I just I'd have to go back and find it, but um in the beginning of that movie, we find out that Will was using the help of Hannibal in multiple cases, and when he finally figures it out, like the beginning of Red Dragon is basically Will like capturing, or he's responsible for why Hannibal gets caught.
Mhm.
But in the series, they're doing things in a slightly different way, and um, yeah, it is interesting. It's funny that you even say that because there's moments where it feels like that,
Mm.
and even in the film, like even though he's behind bars, you can still feel that he feels like he's in control of every situation.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
Yep.
but it's good stuff.
Yep. So Will, yeah, like yeah. So Will is theory. Will's telling Hannibal his theory and everything, and Hannibal says so he framed her for the murder, and Will the copycat framed Georgia for the murder, and Will realizes, no, wait a minute, the copycat wasn't planning on framing her, he was planning on framing me. And and then he poses a theory that this could be someone at the bureau, someone who has access to the investigations and all that stuff. And Hannibal says, someone like you. And Will says, there will be evidence. I'm going to find a pattern and reconstruct his thinking. And Hannibal is kind of like getting nervous in his chair, and he says, how are you going to do that? And Will says, I'm going to take Abigail to Minnesota, where the copycat started all this, and where the copycat called Garrett Jacob Hobbs. And Hannibal is like, oh God. And he says, Will, this is venturing into, paranoid territory. I can't allow you to pull Abigail into this delusion. And Will's like, this isn't a delusion. I'm not hallucinating. I'm not losing time. Uh, I am very awake, and this is real. And then he leaves, and Hannibal's sitting there like, I'm gonna have to kill this guy, aren't I?
I was gonna put in other terms, but I don't think you'd like that on this channel.
Okay.
Like, You gotta be kidding me, you fool.
Yep.
But
The look on his face is like, this is what I mean about how this show does so good at showing.
yeah, the subtleties.
Yeah, like
It,
so there's so much
mhm,
unspoken that
yeah.
is like so much in the body language.
Oh yeah, but like, and in that they're also steering the audience in a different direction because when we think he's gonna zig, he completely zags.
Yeah.
Because holy shit, what happens when Will actually takes her? The
Yeah.
setup for the last episode is intense.
Mhm.
Holy shit, to say the least. Like, yeah, this is some of the best writing I think that's been on television in decades.
Yeah.
You know,
This
this
is
Breaking
yeah, this has
Bad,
been this
but yeah.
writing is phenomenal.
Hmm. Yeah, because it really understands the psychological aspect of these characters in every
Mhm.
regard, and it's not only that we're talking about trauma
Yeah.
victims, people who have like this certain kind of paranoid psychoses, and
Mhm.
like there's a little bit of everything in here, but it's
Yep.
all balanced so well, and each character is like it's just oh my god, it's so good, you
Yeah.
know.
Very.
Yeah. Again, it's masterful storytelling.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so now we are back at the FBI lab, and Zeller and Price, have no, I'm sorry, they're in Jack's office, and they're talking about how they because Jack tasked them with finding connections and all that stuff, and so they're like, we found two tickets for the same train that one of the victims was on, so there's a connection, and also that Hobbs and Abigail, I should say Garrett Jacob Hobbs and Abigail traveled together and were both registered for a class where one of the girls that went missing was attending. So there's another tie. And they went to orientations at every school where a girl had gone missing. So yeah, there is definitely a tie, like irrefutable. And Zeller says that the connection between the copycat and Garrett Jacob Hobbs may be family. And Jack says um, that uh, she, so he's theorizing that it's his daughter. It's Abigail who is doing this with her father. And because that has been his theory about Abigail this
Yes,
whole time.
yeah, he feels she's been guilty from day one, but now yeah,
Yep.
there's more that's pointing towards that.
Yep.
So that his
So
assumption was correct.
yep. Yep. So then he's like, okay, so she killed Cassie Boyle to impress her dad, and then she kills Marissa Schur in memoriam, and then she kills Nicholas Boyle to cover her tracks. So that's Jack's theory.
Hmm.
And Zeller goes, "Why kill Dr. Sutcliffe or the Matchin girl?" And Jack goes, "Because she got a taste for it now, or she wants to impress someone new."
Hmm. So
So
yeah,
there,
so part of his theory's on par, part of it's
yeah,
off because he doesn't know who this copycat killer is. So that's what his missing thing is. So it is interesting. I like how they did that too. His reasoning behind stuff and why he's theorizing the way he is. But
mm-hmm,
again, and that's what's good about this too, because it's also showing how the proper team should be working together
yep,
with having these type of theories and then connecting them with evidence, because like that's how they're supposed to operate.
yep,
You know,
yep,
so it's a little bit of like gut instinct mixed with actual proper investigational skills and all that.
yep.
Yeah, awesome stuff.
And Manliness says Primal is the best writing on TV I've seen in the last 5 years. I haven't checked that one out.
Which primal are we talking about? Is it the caveman cartoon thing? It's like Robert E. Howard stuff. Because that was really good too, by the way. If you want to talk about an animated series that was like another really powerful one, um, I highly recommend that one as well. There's not much dialogue, but holy shit, do they tell a story like you wouldn't believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't know. Is that what you're talking about, Manliness, or is it another show that's called Primal, like a live action thing or something?
Time Prophet says, I think Jack's last name is O'Lantern.
Oh shit!
And
Mr.
then
Meoff is getting upset.
Amelia says, yeah, powerful writing without dialogue. So yeah, it sounds like
Yes.
you guys
Yeah.
talked about the same.
It is really good because it has that flavor of Conan, but yet it's like set in a prehistoric time, and there's a couple like tribal things and stuff like that.
Mm.
But yeah, honestly, just an overall hearing about you, like, caveman, I'm not really into it. When you watch it and you see how much is done, again with the subtleties, because this is the same guy who did the Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack and all that.
Mm.
Holy shit, yeah, it's really good because in the opening, basically the opening of the cartoon, his family gets killed by this T-Rex, and he wants vengeance. He can't really get it, and then he's also at a point where he wants to off himself, and he climbs to like the highest cliff, and it's very like Frank Frazetta. I don't know if you're familiar with that fantasy artist. He did all the Conan covers and stuff. It has
Oh,
that.
okay.
It has
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it has like that flair and that flavor to it. So like it's very like the cinematography and the composition that they use to really reflect like what the character's going through. So like it's sundown or like the sun's about to go down and he's on the cliff, like just he's looking off and he just like he flicks a pebble with his toe just to see how far like the drop is as he's like ready to break down and he's just gonna throw himself off. And before he does, he sees in the sky his wife and two little kids like they kind of gesture like don't do it, like it makes him hold on a little bit longer, and then he gets into a position where he has to save the similar species that off his family. So he sees like there's a crazy attack that's happening and he goes after them, and he sees it's basically like a mother T-Rex trying to protect her young ones, and like he decides not to do what he was about to do. And as he's going to leave, there are bigger ones that come in, and those are the ones who killed his family. So he makes a stand to fight them, and he kind of gets help with the mother. And just the bond and the stuff that happens, it's very, very powerful. It's like, holy shit. Like, they did this without any dialogue. It's incredible. So, yeah.
Wow.
That it's definitely a series we should screw it. We should review that too maybe we'll do that on the Sundays coming up now. We'll talk about that later, but
yeah.
I think you'd really dig it.
All right. Okay, so yeah, okay, so next thing we see is Jack and the agents come and they're going to arrest Abigail, but Freddy's there like packing her stuff up and says, Will, she's gone, Will snuck her out, which is weird that he has to sneak her out because he's listed as one of her guardians.
Mm-hmm.
And she asks, she asked Jack, did Abigail kill Nicholas Boyle? And Jack asks, why do you say that? And she's like, Abigail Hobbs is one of those very smart girls who hasn't quite figured out that very smart girls grow up and know all the moves they're making, referencing herself.
Mm-hmm.
That she can see what Abigail is all about and, how she's hiding things. And then she says, I wonder what Will is hiding. And next thing we see is Jack. Jack is going to, Jack goes to Hannibal's and basically he barges in his office and he's like, sorry for barging in, but he's like, what is Will doing with Abigail? And Hannibal is like, Will has been having, irrational thoughts and stuff. And Jack asks, has he acted on those thoughts? And Hannibal says, not that I'm aware of. And then he tells Jack about how, Will has been losing time and he's lost memory. And Jack is like, you're just telling me this now? And Hannibal says, well, I wanted to be sure if it was, trauma or mental illness before, I...
Destroying his reputation and his
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is actually a lie, but it's a good save.
Yeah, it is, because you kind of see, like, like Jack's finally getting the information he wanted out of Hannibal regarding Will.
Yeah.
So he's like he doesn't care. He at least okay. Well, all right. Well, where's Will now? He's breaking it down, but how they did it was really really good too. Like just the dialogue, which I'm sure you got good notes on.
Yeah. 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 And then Jack tells Hannibal that Will has taken Abigail, and he's like, "Do you have any idea where they might be going?" And Hannibal says no, but he really does know. And Jack, says how we have evidence that Abigail was involved in some of her father's crimes, and Hannibal says, "I want to play this for you," and he plays a recording of Jack asking Will questions like about how he felt when he saw Marissa Sure impaled, and Jack hears that Will. He's like, Will on the recording says, "I felt like I killed her," and Jack asks, "Where was Will the night that Marissa was killed?" Now he's suspecting Will. And Hannibal says, "Well, he was supposed to be in his hotel room, but when I knocked, he wasn't there." And Jack says, "And we know he was in Sutcliffe's office the night Sutcliffe was killed. And he was the last person to see Georgia before she died." And then Jack asks about, his dissociative states and everything. And like, he's like, "What personality does he become when he does that?" And Hannibal says, "Well, he has been feeling like he's becoming Garrick Jacob Hobbs." And he's like, "Great. Now he has Abigail, Hobbs' daughter, who Hobbs was intended to kill."
Yeah.
So,
Hannibal puts on the act of like, "Oh dear God," like, "Oh my, I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't realize it." Like he's pouring it on.
Yeah.
Do you remember Jack's reaction? Was he kind of like? Was he almost being like genuine with how it was like it's not your fault, it's not either one of our faults, like we didn't. Was he giving off that? I can't really remember.
Oh, okay. So that's either later in this episode or the next episode.
I thought it was before he leaves his office there.
No,
because Hannibal's like he's kind of pouring it on.
Yeah, no, they don't have that conversation at that point.
I just kind of gave him a look.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's suspecting Will, which is bullshit, especially when it comes to the Sutcliffe one, because Beverly ran that black light over him, and he was absolutely clean. She's like, "There's no way you could have done this. You're fine."
Right.
And now Jack is like, "Oh no, Will's the killer," and everything like that. So it's kind of like, really, Jack? So next we see Will and Abigail on a plane. They're heading to Minnesota. They get to the cabin. They're up in the antler room, and they have a discussion about hunting. And she asks if he hunts, and he says, "Well, I fish." And she goes, "Well, that's basically the same thing. When you hunt, when you lure." And he turns to her and he says, "Were you the hunter or did you lure?" And he like goes up to her again, and he's like, did you hunt or were you the lure?" And she goes, she starts getting scared. She's like, "I was the lure. Did Hannibal tell you?" And he goes, "No, he didn't." And she says, "He said you'd protect me and keep my secret." And Will is like starting to kind of like lose it, and he grabs her and lifts her up like as if he was going to impale her, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, in his mind he did.
Yeah. And then he's like, "Jack was right about you. You lured those girls and killed them." And he's like, how many have you killed?" And she's like, "You think I'm the copycat?" And Will is like, "If you didn't kill Marissa, then who did it?" And she's like, and she goes, "Did you ever think that you could be the copycat?" and she's like, you were there, you saw Marissa, you knew about this place, and then he's kind of like holding his head, and he's really like trying to contain like the episode he's having, and she's
Yeah.
like, there's something wrong with you.
She was, yeah, I
And
think you're still sick. You're
yeah,
all clammy, and yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was good.
And next thing we see Will wakes up on the plane because the stewardess is like, sir, you have to, get off the plane. Everybody else is left. And he's like, was there a woman next to me? And she's like, no, everybody's off the plane now. And right after that, we see Abigail walking up to her house. She goes in, and Hannibal's there in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
They hug, and um, he it really looks like a genuine hug. He was like worried about her and stuff. And he's like, he asks where Will is. And she says, I left because I didn't feel safe with him. And I just left him at the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, he knows everything. And Hannibal says, yeah, and Jack does too. And she's like, they're going to arrest me when they find me. And he says, they'll arrest her. Yes, they'll arrest you and Will. And she's like, she starts to kind of get like freaked, and she goes, did you kill Marissa? And Hannibal says, oh, I'm sorry, no, she says, did Will kill Marissa? And Hannibal says, they'll believe that he did,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll believe he killed others too. And she says that Will said whoever called. She starts to get like freaked out, and
Yeah.
she kind of pulls away and looking at him nervous, and she goes, Will said whoever called that day was the serial killer. And she's like, why did you call?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I was curious about what would happen. And he says,
Mm-hmm.
I was curious when I killed Marissa. I was curious what you would do. And she's like freaking out, and
Yeah.
she's like, you wanted me to kill Nick Boyle. And he says, I was hoping.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he wanted to see how much her her father she was. And she's absolutely just floored by this. And
Yeah. She's like petrified.
yeah. And then he says, Nicholas, when you killed Nicholas, that changed you, which is more important than his life.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like taken aback, and she's like, how many people have you killed? And he goes up to her, and he's like touching her face and everything, and he's like, many more than your father. And she's like, are you gonna kill me? And he says, I'm so sorry, Abigail, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you in this life.
Yeah.
And
That
that's the end
was
of that episode.
Yeah. As a close up on her face too. It's
they don't
yeah.
show anything, but that's
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah, this next one is a doozy.
They packed a ton in that episode.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
Um,
this was some great stuff.
Fantastic. Absolutely awesome. And this next episode starts out very strong. We see it's at night, and Will is hunting that stag that stalks him.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes a shot at it, and he hits it, but it runs, and he starts like running after it, and it looks like it kind of like falls over by a tree. So he touches like the tree, and there's blood on the tree, and then but there's no stag on the ground. But when he looks up, he sees. I'm going to show this because this is awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
He sees a stag, but it looks a lot different.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah, because he's hot on the trail. Yeah. And so it's starting to show. It's starting to reveal itself in his, his crazy dreams and stuff. So yeah, it's like this kind of humanoid looking thing.
Let's see, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is what he sees. That was freaky because they only show it for a second.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And yes, time for off, but that would be Good Will Hunting. I thought the same thing when I was watching it.
Right? Oh shit.
And then after he sees that, he wakes up um and he sees that his feet are muddy, his hands are muddy, and he goes over to his kitchen sink. Is like taking water, and he goes to take a pill, and then he gets sick in the sink, and we see that there are pills and an ear in his sink.
Yeah. It looked like he coughed it up.
Yeah, it did. It really did. It did look like he puked it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as soon as he sees it, he freaks out and like jumps back. His feet are covered in mud. His hands are like he was doing something in his sleep.
Yeah. So he must have called Hannibal, because Hannibal shows up, and he's like, I took Hannibal, as if Hannibal didn't know. He's like, I took Abigail to Minnesota, but she didn't come back with me. And Hannibal goes, show me. And so he goes over to the sink, and he sees the ear in the sink and the pills and everything. And Will's like, I don't remember going to bed last night. And Hannibal asks, when was the last time you saw Abigail? And he says, at the cabin. And he says, I had an episode. She got scared and she ran away. And Hannibal goes, why was she afraid? And he said that he hallucinated that he killed her, but it wasn't real. And Hannibal's like, okay, we have to call Jack. This is just too much. And Will agrees to that.
Yeah.
So now Will's house is a crime scene. They've got the crew there. And Jack is asking Will, what are we gonna find in Minnesota? And then that he ends up saying, okay, process him. So we see Will getting processed, and they find a knife in his pocket and some other stuff. And then we see Beverly, scraping his fingernails. And she's like, all right, look, I can't do the silent treatment anymore. We both know what we're going to find under your fingernails. And she's like, if you weren't stable, why did you keep coming in and everything? And
yeah, she brings up when he called her as well. Because he wasn't feeling certain about things. And
And Tree Rock says, I'm listening as I edit a video. That's cool, dude. Thank you. Nice. Thank you for keeping it on.
Awesome.
And so and then she says, you always say interpret the evidence, so interpret it. And he says, and he's like kind of hesitant and shaky and everything, and he goes, according to the evidence, I killed Abigail Hobbs. So now Jack is talking to Alana, and this gets kind of heated. He's telling her about the evidence and everything, and he's like, he killed Abigail. And she's like, shut up, stop talking. You said you wouldn't let him get too close, that you would cover him. And she's like, you could see that he was breaking, and she's like raising her voice. And Jack admits to it and says, yep, I did. And I kept pushing him because he was saving lives, Alana. And she goes, not Abigail Hobbs' life. And Jack says, tell me you couldn't see that he was breaking. And she gets up and she yells, of course I could see it. I told you not to put him out there. And he's like, everything I did was under the advisement of a respected psychiatrist that you recommended. And it kind of takes her down a peg, because that is the truth. And she's like, Hannibal had to have seen what was going on. And Jack is like, not until it was too late. And Jack mentions that Will could have dementia. And she's like, dementia isn't a disease, it's a symptom of a disease. And she's like, he needs to be treated. And Jack says his scans came out clean. And she's like, well, then they don't know what they're looking for. And she's like, Abigail's blood is on all our hands, and so is Will's. And then we see her like in her car, and she's like raging and crying. It's sad.
Break down in the car. Yeah, because this is all stuff that she knows like could have been avoided. And again, it's Jack's fault for letting it go that far.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good, Lurch Troll. If we're still on, we'll see you later. If
Cool,
not,
man.
thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
All right. And then we see, yeah, Will is in the interrogation room.
Yeah.
Lana comes in to see him, and he goes,
He points it out right away.
yeah, she's like, he goes, you look like you've been yelling and stuff, and she's like, more like screaming, and he goes, I'm surprised Jack let you in to see me, given my romantic overtures. And she says, Jack doesn't know. And then she kind of nods the window and says, well, didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, I guess you dodged a bullet with me. And she's like, I don't feel that way. I feel wounded. And then she reassures Will that, she's going to take care of his dogs and everything. And she's like, tears are streaming down her face. It's very sad.
It is.
And then she's like, we're going to do some exercises, mental stuff with him. And he's like, let me guess, you're going to have me draw a clock too? And she's like, did Hannibal have you draw a clock? And he's like, yeah, it was keep me grounded and all this stuff. And she's like, was the clock normal? And he says, would I be here if it wasn't?
Mm-hmm.
So like that is a clue.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and so she says, draw a clock for me, and he draws it, and she sees it's not a normal clock.
Yeah.
And then she says, he's like, telling time isn't my problem. She says, it's the least of your problems, because she realizes, oh boy.
Yeah. There's more going on, and Hannibal must have seen this as well.
Yep. And then we see Hannibal is in session.
Yeah, that's not what we saw. He did make the circle this time, but all the numbers were all on one side.
Yeah, Time Prophet asks, how can you draw an abnormal clock? Maybe I could get a picture of it.
Yeah. It's basically, you make your circle, and instead of having like the 12, the 3, the 6, and the 9, they're, north, east, west, and south. It starts like at the top with 12 or no 1. It started with 1. I think it went all the way down on only one side. So like the whole, like, what is it, like the right side of the clock? That's the only thing that had numbers on it.
Yeah.
And in his mind, he sees that he did it properly with the correct time. And even the hands of the clock, they're off to the side. It's not in the center. It's not even close.
Yep. So this is the one that he drew for Hannibal, and people have gotten tattoos of this and have even made T-shirts out of it. So
what? Okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
yeah, I just discovered that too as I was looking it up. And yeah, Time Prophet. This is I don't know if they still do this, but this used to be a test for like Alzheimer's or any other form of dementia. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they still have patients do this or not.
I don't know either.
But yeah, so that's a common, like, how it would be if you were trying to draw a clock and you had that. So yeah, wild. Okay.
What trick am I missing?
What do you mean by that, Time Prophet? Vinny is missing a trick here. Oh, with the T-shirt?
Oh, should do it.
Melina says, sounds almost like split brain where they disconnect the hemispheres, like schizophrenia. It's that clock thing.
It is a cognitive test.
Yeah, it's a yeah, exactly. It's cognitive neurological.
Yeah, like a displacement test or something.
Yeah. Like it shows, like, do you have, like, is the spatial center of your brain working, and all that stuff.
Right.
Oh, that's a good theory. Perhaps he is perfectly sane, but is a terrible artist. That would be me. That's awesome. I love that. So next thing we see is Hannibal is in a session with Dumaurier, and he's like here. He's like crying. He's actually crying, and he says he's grieving Abigail and stuff, and it's just like, dude, you did this. And he reveals how, he never thought about having kids, but when he met Abigail, she basically made him feel like a father, and he didn't ever think that was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And and then she says, perhaps you're also grieving Will. And he says that he has hope for Will. And she says, if they find him guilty, and he interjects, he goes, when? Let's be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes on to say, I don't recommend that you participate in any form of rehab treatment with him. And then, he tears, he's crying, and he's like, I feel like I failed both of them so profoundly. And yeah, it's like you have, and it was all by your design.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I can't remember. Is she believing what he's selling at that point?
I'm not entirely sure, because sometimes I get a feeling where she's playing along.
Yeah, because she's very stonewalled in her face, like her facial expressions.
Yes, like it's hard to get a read on her.
Mm-hmm.
And Manley just says, no, there's a surgery where they disconnect part of the brain that connects the hemispheres. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know what that is.
I didn't know that. What's the purpose of that?
I'm not sure. Is that a thing for epilepsy?
I have no clue.
I don't know. Yeah, he says you get really weird cognitive results from cognitive tests with it. Huh.
Wow.
Never heard of that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So then we're back at the lab, and they they've gone through Will's house because it is a crime scene, and they're looking at his lures, and they have taken them apart, and we find out that they contain a bunch of victims' body parts, like hair, teeth, nails, stuff like that, and each of them belongs to like one of the girls that have gone missing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jack says, so now he's a serial killer who collects trophies? And Anna's like, no, there's something wrong with Will neurologically. He's not a serial killer.
Right.
And Tree Rock says, I just want to say, listening to you and Vinny talk allows me to concentrate on this boring video editing project. In other words, I'm not lonely when working by myself. Thanks. Oh, that's awesome.
Nice, man.
I'm glad to be keeping you company.
Right? That's awesome.
Yeah. And I hope your project comes out good.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man. So
now we see Will again in the interrogation room, and he starts to hear like these like hoof prints. What do you call them? Not prints.
No, the sounds of
like hooves hitting. Yeah. I can't.
Not a full-on gallop or nothing, but it's
yeah.
He hears like the clicking in the clock.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And he sees like a stag thing in the window.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like kind of taken out of that when Jack walks in and tells him that, you're going to get the treatment you need and everything like that. And Will's like, oh, good. And then what? Baltimore Hospital for the Criminally Insane. Mm-hmm. And Jack goes, I'm trying to be optimistic here. And then he tells Will about all the fishing lures and how they contain human remains. And Will's like, no, I wasn't sick when those girls, when Cassie and Marissa were murdered. And Jack's like, that is not an argument you want to be making with me right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because that basically because Will says, well, then I'd be a psychopath. And Jack's like, my biggest fear is that we find out that you knew what you were doing the whole time.
Yeah.
Like Jack is like, they don't want that. They do not. And Will's like, well, you don't have to be afraid of that, because whoever is doing this to me, they'll be close to you. And so Jack is like, oh, so now it's a setup? And then Will goes on to say it could be someone here. They know the cases, the forensics, and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and they know I'm unstable. So it's got to be someone that knows all those things.
Yeah, but someone close to this team.
Yep. But Jack says, "Oh, that sounds paranoid."
Mm-hmm.
And Will says, "For all I know, it could be you." And then Jack sits down. Oh no, sorry. Then he says, "Then I'd really be screwed, wouldn't I?" And then Jack sits down and says, "I wanted to be the one to do this." And then he arrests Will and tells him his Miranda rights and everything like that. And then we see Will getting put in an ambulance. He's headed to Baltimore.
Yep.
Yep, he's headed to the loony bin.
Uh-huh.
And then so in the ambulance, a lot like Gideon, he breaks his thumb to get out of the cuffs, and he attacks his the guard that's in the ambulance with him.
Yep.
And next thing we see oh hey Lurch, welcome back.
Hey, welcome back, man.
Okay. So what we were talking about earlier, Manliness says, yeah, it is for epilepsy. That doesn't respond to normal treatments. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay, cool.
That's wild.
Oh God, Time Prophet. I was once a serial killer. I beat up a box of cornflakes. These jokes.
Oh, I thought you murdered a box of cornflakes.
Okay, and then we're in Hannibal's office, and Jack, is telling him how he disarmed his guard, and threw his guard and driver from the vehicle, and then ditched the ambulance in an alley and everything. And he's like, these aren't the actions of an innocent man. And Alana says, they're actions of a man who's impaired. She's like still holding on for him.
Yeah.
And then she shows Hannibal the clock, and Hannibal says, well, that's extreme. And then he pulls out a clock, and he's like, this is one that I had Will draw like a couple weeks ago or something like that. Right. It's a bullshit clock because it's perfectly drawn, and we know Will's clocks have been messed up.
Yeah, but it's signed with Will's name, so like he even forged the signature.
Yep, I knew he was going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then they're discussing possible diseases, like what could come on quickly, but then kind of like plateau. And Alana guesses encephalitis, which kudos to her for guessing that.
Yeah, because it's right on par with what the hell he had.
Yeah, that's literally what he has. And Hannibal's like, autoimmune encephalitis, and she's like, it's hard to diagnose, and won't even show up on a scan unless you know what you're looking for. And Jack goes, just tell me if he could kill 5 people and not know it. And Jack's like, this doesn't feel like dementia. This feels like an intelligent psychopath. And he brings up the phone call to Hobbs' house, and Hannibal lies and says that Will was left alone in the cabin while Hannibal was loading files. Yeah. And that's totally a lie, because actually it was the other way around.
Yeah. He tripped them up or dropped the box, so they were picking up the files when he went back into the office and made the phone call.
Yep.
That piece of shit.
Yeah. And Jack goes, dumb luck and bad bookkeeping. Isn't that how he says he caught Hobbs? Right. And then Jack is like, how did Will find Hobbs' file? And Hannibal goes, it's as if he's just plucked his name out of a hat. And Jack is like, if Will could... Oh, I'm sorry. Jack goes, could Will fake the clock test? And Alana says yes. So, yeah, Jack is definitely still suspecting. He's on the theory that Will is just the serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not looking good for Will. And then we see Hannibal like sitting at his desk, and he kind of like he sits up and he goes, hello, Will. And we see Will sitting in that upper part of his office where the books are. And he's like, how you feeling? And Will's like self-aware. And Hannibal says, "You scared Alana," and Will says she's confused about who I am, which I can relate to, and Will, Will, they're talking, and Will doesn't believe he's a killer, and asks Hannibal, he's like, "Do you think I am?" And Hannibal's like, "I think it's entirely possible, and it's pretty hard to prove otherwise with all the evidence."
Mm-hmm.
And Hannibal says, "If you are this killer, there'll be a thread through all these events." It's like, of course he knows that because he's the actual killer.
Right.
And he said Cassie Boyle would have been his first victim. And then Will said the crime scene. Will said the crime scene was practically gift wrapped.
Mm-hmm.
And Will looks over, and it looks like he's looking at the audience. But what he sees is like that was that girl that I think the first girl, her name was Cassie, right?
Was that the one in the fields?
I think so. Yeah.
Because didn't he say because I wasn't even in the state, I was in Missouri or something.
Yeah.
And then Hannibal says, well, the time when she actually got abducted, like he said that the time was earlier than because they were trying to say when they found the body or whatever. But she was abducted earlier than that. So like he's trying to say like it is entirely possible. Like every time Will has a theory of how no, it can't be me, he tries to steer it back on, well, no, it's still possible with this timeline.
Yep. And hello, J-Man. J-Man says, loved the show. Will Graham was great. Red Dragon is also my favorite of the books. Awesome.
Nice. Okay, so you actually you read it. Were most of these characters in the book as well? Because I know like the movie it veers off a bit, and I know this series is like it's got characters from it and loosely based on it, and they kind of did their own thing. But yeah, I'm kind of curious. Yeah, what are some of the big differences that you've seen between the book and the show and the movie?
Yeah, I like that too. Well, J-Man, having read the books, is also a fan of the show, so can't be that bad, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But
again, this writing is so damn good.
Yeah. Yeah. Wicked. It's awesome. And I like how when he sees that impaled woman, she's like all in black, like this black paint stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it looks cool. And he's like, it told me everything I needed to know to catch Garrett Jacob Hobbs. And Hannibal says, and it's also awesome how they filmed this too, because as Lecter's talking, notice how he's in the shadow.
Yeah.
He's like operating from the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
That I like that. That was
that's good.
Yeah. And he says, you saw one of his kills, and you may have been exploring how he killed to better understand who he was. And Will says, but I wasn't in Minnesota when she was murdered. And Hannibal says, well, she was killed on a Saturday but found on a Monday, so you would have had the whole weekend to do it. And Will says, I know I didn't kill her. And Hannibal's like, how do you know? Totally gaslighting him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Hannibal asks, what did you think when you met Marissa Sure? And then Will looks over to another part of the room and sees Marissa on the wall, just like he found her in the antler room, but she's also in that, like, covered in black. And it just looks awesome because she's in black and it's against this red wall.
Yeah.
Visually, it's beautiful.
It is.
Okay, so J-Man says the book is mostly just Will trying to find Dollarhide. Hannibal is only in a couple of bits. And then he says the book was adapted well in Manhunter. Yep. That's the first Hannibal movie, not Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, I'm familiar with that movie. I haven't seen it, but I know what movie you're talking about.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I saw it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Brian Cox. Yeah, Brian Cox is great.
Yeah.
I think all three of these actors who played Hannibal have done an incredible job.
Yeah, absolutely. I I don't think I've seen Manhunter. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, the killer in that one, the one who played Dollarhide, he was in the last Action Hero. He's a really tall actor.
Okay.
Do you remember when they came out of the movie screen wearing like the yellow raincoat with the axe in the last Action Hero?
No, I did. I never saw. Did I ever see Last Act? I don't think I ever saw that
Oh,
series.
okay. He's done a number of things. I can't think of the other movies. That's one of the few that I kind of remember him from. Yeah, Tom Noonan. Yeah, he's like bald on top. He has hair on the sides.
Okay.
Kind of a round head, but he's yeah. Oh yeah, Kane in RoboCop 2. That's right.
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He's a serial killer in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff though. Like I said, they did a great job.
Yes, very much. And yeah, so yeah, he's like, well, how do you know you didn't and everything, and yeah, Lurch, I'll check it out. There's a lot I'm gonna have to be checking out.
Mm-hmm.
He Frankenstein and Monster Squad. Okay.
Oh, that's right. Holy shit. Hey, Slasher.
He's
Dude,
and also He's Slasher. Good to see
yeah,
you.
that's right. That was him.
Awesome. All right.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So Hannibal's gaslighting Will, and Will kind of gets into that mode, like he's going into Garrett Jacob Hobbs mode, and he goes, "How could I resist?" And Hannibal says, she was so much like his daughter. You may have wondered why Hobbs didn't kill her himself. And then he says, Dr. Sutcliffe wasn't killed. How Garrett Jacob Hobbs killed his victims.
Mm-hmm.
And then Will sees Sutcliffe in a chair, and Sutcliffe is also, looking like that black paint thing, and he's in a red chair.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it looks awesome. It's very visually stunning.
Yeah, but they had his mouth closed on this one.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
Not to horrify people too much. Like I said, I'm sure they got a ton of letters on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Hannibal, playing with his mind, says, well, Sutcliffe was murdered how you imagined yourself murdering a woman just days before, referencing how Georgia defaced her friend.
Right.
And Will's like, yeah, because Will goes, you mean how Georgia Madchen killed her friend? And he says, she dreamed and saw me killing Sutcliffe, but she couldn't see my face, and then she was murdered. And Hannibal says, you catch these killers by getting into their heads, but you also let them into your own. Mm-hmm. And then the camera pans, and Hannibal says, I'm trying to help you, Will. And Will sees, and then as the camera's panning, we see like Hannibal in his chair, and that stag demon thing is standing behind Hannibal. And Will says, take me to Minnesota. I want to see where Abigail died. So yeah, Hannibal takes Will. And hello, Tommy. Good to see you.
Hey,
Hope you're
Tommy.
well tonight. Lurch is saying Last Action Hero is the movie where Arnold Schwarzenegger made fun of his whole career.
Yep. Yeah, this kid gets pulled into the movies, and he's the only one that knows that it's all like make believe nonsense, and like the hero could never lose, he could never die, but then he gets pulled into the real world and gets put into a really bad situation.
Yeah. And then Time Prophet says Brian Cox was good in Bourne Identity.
Oh yeah, he was.
All right.
The Matt Damon movies.
Matt Damon, yeah, I liked the first one, and then I was kind of like, I'm kind of done with these.
They were actually all pretty good in how they connected. They even did the one with what's his name, Jeremy Renner, which is
Yeah.
that was really good too.
I just kind of got sick of it. You know
I
what I
get it
mean?
because the actor himself did, the Matt Damon.
Well, it just kind of got monotonous to me. Like it felt like the same movie over and over. But
Well, yeah, because it was still the same connecting story. So
yeah.
yeah, I can get that. Yeah, I get that.
Mm-hmm. So Hannibal takes Will to Minnesota, and then we see Jack and Alana pay a visit to Dr. Demarier, and asks if she's heard from Hannibal, because or yeah,
Yeah,
and she
he missed his appointment.
yeah
Which
yeah
is
and
very unlikely for him to have done.
yeah, she's like he'd consider that rude and everything, and
Yep.
Jack says he believes that Will Jack says that he goes, I believe that Will has taken Lecter to Minnesota, and it's actually the other way around. And Alana says Will thinks that he's being framed for these murders, and he's slipping in and out of delusion, and he could even kill Hannibal and not even realize that he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Demarier says, if anyone could have helped Mr. Graham, it would have been Hannibal. And it's like, okay, thank you, that's not helpful. And she says he may still be trying. So next we see, what we see is a dream. We see Hannibal and Will get to the Hobbs residence, and Will walks up to the door, and the phone rings, and it's like when this first happens, Abigail answers the phone, and then hands it. She's like, it's for you, Dad, but Dad is actually Will, and Will takes the phone, and we hear Hannibal's voice say Will on the other end of the phone, and Will's like, yes. And then Will wakes up, and from Hannibal calling to him like, Will, and that's what Will was hearing in his dream, but he heard Hannibal's voice over the phone in the dream. So it's kind of like his mind's way of working out all of the clues.
Yep. Yeah. Which is it's wild because by the time they get there, he's full on knowing who's responsible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then,
when they get there too, it's like you see the pool of blood, and it was a lot of blood too, and it was all hers.
Yeah. They get there, and then Will has a flashback of when the four of them were there. He remembers that Abigail's like, we can recreate the crime. You can be my dad, pointing to Will. You can be my mom, pointing to Alana, and you can be the guy on the phone, pointing to Hannibal. And this is like running through Will's mind, and Will's like finally putting all the pieces together.
Yeah.
And he turns to Hannibal and he goes, are we going to reenact the crime? And Hannibal goes, if that will help you. So they go to the kitchen, and he sees all the blood on the floor, and Hannibal says, it's as if Abigail was supposed to die in this kitchen. And Will looks at the blood pattern and everything, and he's like, her throat was cut. You can see the arterial spray and all that stuff, and he's doing his thing. And Hannibal says, if you were acting as Garrett Jacob Hobbs, they'll never find her body. And Will says, because I would have honored every part of her, because that's what Hobbs did.
Right.
And Hannibal says, maybe you didn't come here looking for a killer. Maybe you came here to find yourself. And Hannibal says, if you cultivated who you really are, you could be somebody completely different right now. And he's like, you're alone because you're unique. And Will says, I know who I am. I'm not sure I know who you are anymore, but I'm certain one of us killed Abigail. And Hannibal says, whoever killed Abigail killed the others. and Will then turns and has his gun on Hannibal, and Hannibal says, "Are you a killer, Will?" And Will says, "I am who I've always been. The scales have fallen from my eyes." He goes, "I can see you now." And Hannibal asks, "What do you see?" And Hannibal says, "You called here that morning, and Abigail knew you kept her secrets until what? She found out some of yours?" And Hannibal says, You said it felt good to kill Hobbs. Would it feel good to kill me now?" And Will says, "Hobbs was a murderer. Are you a murderer, Dr. Lecter?"
Mm-hmm.
And Lecter goes, "What reason would I have?" And then we see the front door opening, and Jack walks in. He's walking in quietly, and Will is saying, "You have no traceable motive, which is why you were so hard to see. You were just curious what I would do to someone, and someone like me." And Jack hears Will say that, "Someone like me," and then he hears Will say, "Someone who thinks how I think. Wind him up and watch him go." And apparently, Dr. Lecter, this is how I go. And he goes like he's ready to take the bull, fire it off.
Yeah.
Jack comes in and it's like, "Will, easy."
Mm-hmm.
And Will, surprisingly, this did surprise me because I forgot all about this. Will go fires the shot, and but well, he goes to fire the shot, but he doesn't. He's gonna shoot Lecter right in the head, but it's actually Jack who gets a shot into Will, not a fatal shot.
Yeah.
But it takes him down, and he ends up in the same corner that Hobbs wound up when Will shot Hobbs.
And he says the same thing.
Yep, he says, see, and when he says that, he's seeing that demon man with the antlers.
Yeah, standing next to Jack.
Yep, and it's where Hannibal's supposed to be standing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he totally sees now.
Yep.
And time private. I worked out why the clock was wonky. He was killing time. Good one.
Holy shit.
So then we see Will in his hospital bed, and Hannibal is sitting there, and he tells Jack that Will's been, put into a coma to reduce the swelling in his brain and everything, and they expect him to make a substantial recovery. And Jack is, talking to Hannibal. He's like, "I've seen people broken by this world in all kinds of hideous ways, but never like this."
Mm-hmm.
And Hannibal goes, "Nobody in this room will ever be the same."
Yeah.
And then we see Hannibal brings dinner to Dr. DeMaurier, and and as they're sitting down, she's like, "This is a pleasant surprise," and everything. And as they're sitting down, he says, "I'm going to go see Will tomorrow." And she goes, "As a friend or a patient?" And he says, "As a farewell of sorts."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, that Will cost Abigail her life. And then he's like, "You haven't touched your veal. We know what the veal is." And then she takes a bite of the veal, and they discuss how, veal is a controversial dish because of the age of the calf and everything.
Mm-hmm. And he says, "Well, there's more pigs that are slaughtered at a younger age."
Yep, and remember, he considers his kills. No, I think it was Will that called his kills a sound, because that's like, was it a sound? A bunch of pigs is called a sound or something like that. A round sounder. I forget the name of it, but it's something like that. But it has to do with what he called what they refer to his kills as. And then she tells him, "You have to be careful because they're starting to see your pattern." And he's like, "What pattern is that?" And she's like, "You form relationships with your patients that are violent, who are violent." And she says, Jack might start to figure you out. And he asks, have your beliefs about me begun to unravel? And they just leave that hanging. They do that a lot with scenes. They leave them hanging.
Yeah.
And then next we see we're at the Baltimore State Hospital for the Criminally Insane.
Yep.
And Lecter walks in, the gate shuts behind him, and he kind of it's almost as if he musters up the energy, kind of like gets his confidence or whatever it is. He goes and visits Will in his cell, and this looks so much like Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Except it's reversed.
Yep.
And he says, hello, Will. And Will gets up and goes to the bars and says, hello, Dr. Lecter. And Lecter smiles, and it's like, that is so Silence of the Lambs. I love how that ended.
It was so good.
Oh my God, manliness! A group of pigs is called The View. Oh my God.
You're not wrong.
Oh, thank you. Okay, Time Prophet. Yeah, I thought it was something like that.
Sounder.
So, Sounder, a more general term for a group of pigs, especially wild pigs. Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
Which again, that's what's used in Hannibal the movie.
Yeah.
The sequel to Silence of the Lambs.
Yep.
Which again, I really wish that she came back and did the damn thing.
Yeah. I know.
She was under contract for another movie or something. They couldn't move shit around. It's like, are you for real? How do you make it without Jodie Foster?
I know, in some capacity, like she doesn't even have to be an agent. She could just be someone in the show.
No, I didn't mean the show. I meant in the movie.
I get you.
They recasted her with the redhead.
Yeah, I know what you mean now. Yeah.
It's it pissed me off so much because that movie would have been so much better had she come back.
Yeah, she was such a great character.
Yeah. Because with the other ones, she's a good actress, but I didn't think she was right for the role.
Yeah. Because like Jodie Foster just nailed it, and it's like that. It's like when that happens, it's hard to picture anybody else.
Yeah, because you want to actually see what the hell happens between the characters, and when it's someone else that's taken the place, it's like it throws it all off.
Yeah. Character continuity is definitely a thing.
Especially with a movie that's that big, and they won all the Oscars for it. Like they each got a damn Oscar, and you can get someone else. You people crazy, man. You crazy. You hold that production until she's ready then.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree.
But yeah, this was something else though.
Yeah, this was fantastic end of this season.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into season 2 and
oh my God, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait. I watched the first 2 minutes and then I stopped it. Cause oh my God, if he's at the cliffhanger or something. The opener of season 2 is holy shit.
I stopped myself. I don't remember. Yeah. Well, I remember like scenes here and there in season 2 and some in season 3, but I really don't remember the series. This is like I feel like I'm watching it for the first time again because I haven't seen it since it was originally on.
Yeah, same. There's a lot that I didn't remember, or there was still a lot of surprises during the season. But I was correct with something that I did remember out of season 2, or the ending of season 2. There is definitely stuff that I did remember about that. Yeah. So when we get to it, but I am looking forward to covering it because I forget how they get to the point that they do. Yeah. The beginning of season 2, we see what would I guess ultimately be the end first, or how we get to we almost get to the very end. Like it's right before, I guess, when shit's really hitting the fan, I guess, of the end of season 2 is how they do the opener. So, because then it goes, what is it, like 12 weeks earlier or something, like to do something like that. So they give you a taste of it, and then we have flashbacks. So the majority of the season looks like is going to be like a flashback thing. Yeah. But, oh my God, so freaking good.
And Time Prophet, okay, sounds good. Thank you for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And yeah, hope you have a good night.
Absolutely, man. Have a good night. Yeah, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, this was awesome, and yeah, looking forward to getting into season 2, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. So if if you want, go ahead and let everybody know what you got going on.
Yeah, tomorrow night should be the toy stream. So check that out on Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective stream, and on my or on his channel on YouTube, and on mine, or also on my Twitter. Everything is at Vinny Art. Check all that stuff out. Again, working on my comic books. We still have a couple of them are available now. So if you haven't gotten them, please jump on it. We got Through the Woods. That's over on the Shadow of the Kraken campaign. So you get two awesome books there. An awesome kind of thriller ghost story with Through the Woods, and a really awesome pirate story with some supernatural elements to it. That's all on that campaign. Then I have the other campaign, which is the art books. We got two incredible art books. One's 140 pages. The other one's 64 pages. And we do have the kids book, The Ghostly Manor on Howling Hill. So an all ages kind of book for anyone who's into that type of fun stories and kind of that cool cartoony style. So yeah, I changed up the style a little bit in order to do that book. But yeah, fun stuff, awesome stuff, and original artwork. And
Yep. Good
Thank
stuff.
Thank you, Trina. This was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a blast reviewing these with you, and everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate all of you, and I hope you all enjoyed our review of this, and we will be back next week to get into season 2. And Time Prophet was asking if the series was still going, and I explained it had ended years ago, and he's like, "Oh, good, so it won't get canceled halfway through." And it didn't get canceled. It does have an end. I mean, technically, it was supposed to get more seasons, but it didn't. But it does have an end.
Yeah, where it ends, kind of. I guess it's sort of similar, but not exact with I guess how it would have been, I guess, in the movie.
Yeah,
it's a crazy ending, that's for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, still good stuff. And yeah, a solid 3 seasons. You can't really complain on that. I mean, should we have gotten more? Yes. Did they almost do it? Yes. The problem is, again, the people who surf the high seas after the fact, because when they went to go put it onto Netflix, they found out that, basically no one was watching it because it was one of the most downloaded shows on the internet overseas.
Yeah.
So that's what screwed it, because they go, well, if there's no interest, we're not going to make it. So, had those people in Europe not done that, this would have gotten more seasons.
Yeah.
So it's a damn shame.
But at least it did have an end, so it's not like it ended. I hate that when you get into a show and it ends on just a regular episode. It's like, what? That's it?
Yeah.
But
exactly. Well, and again, don't forget, Ash versus Evil Dead, same deal. They were going to get more seasons, but people who downloaded it screwed it.
Yeah, but there again, at least that season had an ending as well.
Yep. Again, similar to the movie. But yeah, still good stuff, and yeah, at least we still got it. Again, the writing on this alone, the acting, yeah, go ahead, go watch it. Even if it had a so-so or kind of ending, I would still recommend it. But that's not the case. It was all great throughout. So
yep, solid right through all 3 seasons. But again, thank you all for hanging out with us, and anybody catching us on the replay, thank you as well. I hope you all have a great night, and we will see you back here next Wednesday.
Yeah. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.